liked the particular message that Pastor Jeremiah had about, and he kept pointing back to Psalms 46 and the fact that this psalm was written during the time when God protected the nation of Israel from the invading armies of Sennacherib from Syria coming down, from Nineveh coming down to destroy them. God protected them. And Hezekiah, remember, he wrote or Sennacherib wrote a letter to Hezekiah, and he laid it out before the Lord. And then God sent his angel, and he slew 186,000 of the enemy army, and Sennacherib went back up into Nineveh and ended up dying up there. So God protected him. This psalm came from that story. Okay, Psalms 46. To the chief musician, to the sons of Korah, a song upon Aleph. So in other words, this was sung over and over again for many generations, and they would remember what God did. God is our refuge and strength, and very present help in trouble. Boy, does America need that? Therefore will we fear. I didn't read that right, did I? No. Therefore will we not fear, though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with the swelling thereof, Selah. There is a river, the streams whereof shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacles of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God shall help her, and that right early. The heathen raged. The kingdoms were moved. He uttered it, speaking of God. He uttered his voice, and the earth melted. Isn't that amazing that, we're not in the minority. I don't care what the polls say. We win, and all of, we may just be a remnant of the remnant. Like I told Penny, I feel like I'm in a remnant of the remnant of the remnant. Some of the things that are going on, even within the churches. To get on Facebook and look at some of the Christian people that are in our churches, some of the things going on. Man, am I the only one? You've seen it too, Vic. Yes, you're shaking your head. You think, oh my goodness, where is God's, in this brother's life or in this sister's life or these kids? Just one of the ones, and I won't even say the name, but one of the ones over there at Mount Morris that was very active in our Awana and everything, and families active in the church and good family and everything. And one of the children, looking at her particular Facebook thing, and she's with this group that it's my body, it's my choice. And she's out carrying the placard for don't take abortion away from us. We have the right to have abortion. This was a girl who was raised in church with a good Christian family. And I'm thinking, what is going on? And in my own family with Nathan and some of this stuff. And you think, is there anybody left, Lord? Is there anybody left? Well, Hezekiah kind of thought that back then. Am I the only one that got, I'm surrounded by this great army? When God moves, he straightens things out. So I'm looking for, not a civil war, but I'm looking for a revival. That these people, God can still do something. He's going to have to, because our Christian churches are in shambles. And we're going to be covering one part here, and I'll probably get thrown out of most of the those that are listening to the video later on, but go there anyways. Let's go back to Revelation chapter 17. And we're going to pick it up in verse 14. Remember, we stopped there at 13. I didn't want to get into 14 because I think this is kind of a hot item, okay? But I want to cover it because I think this is very important. But before we get into that, let's do a little review. What about the songs? You remember the song we played, Margie played for us last time? Jewels, precious jewels, His love and His own. The second verse says, who are the jewels, precious jewels? The little children. They're the jewels, precious jewels. That's not what that... Malachi didn't say anything about little children being the jewels. No way. We have got songs that have been totally outside of good doctrine. That is not what God... That's not the jewels. We are the jewels. He's going to look to make up His jewels. And who are those that will be Christ's jewels? I think a good analogy, if we look in the Old Testament, we'll see David's mighty men. He had 37 mighty men. Why were they his mighty men? Because they were select from the select from the select. They were his special ones. And I think that's kind of the analogy that Jesus makes, that the jewels, when God makes up His jewels, makes up Jesus' jewels, it's the select believers of the select of the select of the select. The remnant of the remnant of the remnant. And when we look at this whole story with David in the Old Testament was not just a story about a guy that he's looking for guys that go out and kill a whole bunch of people and he's going to make them his mighty men. No, that's an analogy of what Jesus is going to do when we stand before Him. And He says, as Paul said, he strove for the mark of the prize of the high calling in Christ Jesus. He didn't want to just make it. He didn't want to be one of the ones that is saved and goes to heaven, and maybe he wanted to be the one with the high mark, the high calling. He wanted to be one of the jewels. Is that kind of okay? Another song. Jesus loves me, this I know. Second verse. If I love Him when I die, He will take me home on high.
See, that's not scriptural.
That is not scriptural. And we sing these songs in churches a lot of times. Many, many, many songs. And we twist things up and we make things say that what they don't mean, and they paint heaven as some kind of flower in the sky kind of a thing. You know, we don't, and I think, wait a minute. What's wrong with that song? If I love Him when I die, He will take me home on high. What's wrong with that? Theologically, biblically.
The if. It's just if. There's no if once you get saved.
Yeah, saved, isn't it? It doesn't say if I love Him. It says I'm born again. Then I go to Him. Oh, you could have some Mormon out here saying, I love God. I love Jesus. Yeah, but have you asked Jesus to forgive your sins and commit you?
That's the key. You talk to people and you ask them, yeah, I love God. Yep. But when you say, I don't know Jesus, blah.
Mm-hmm. And you know, in our songbook, we've got the Baptist hymnal. I'm leafing through there and I'm like, look at this third verse here. It's talking about the kingdom. We're going to be part of the kingdom. We're going to die and we're going to go to the kingdom. Or what about the one, even Amazing Grace, that will be there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun? We've no less days to sing God's praise than when we've just begun. Okay, there'll be 10,000 years we're going to be with Jesus, but we're not going to be there for 10,000 years. We're only there until we return back down here. Is that not the doctrine? But see, the songs and stuff have so twisted the good theology or good doctrine in the church that we sing them. And next time you sing some of them songs, now Amazing Grace, the first Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. What a great bunch of words put in good sequence and everything. But when you get to the part, 10,000 years, Right, Channing has a son who we've no less days to sing that. When I go to be with him for 10,000 years. Okay, if you want to say I'm going to be up there for until we come back down here for 1,000 years, and then we go into the new heaven and the new earth for the rest of it. Okay, and I realize you don't have enough words to put all that in that song, but that kind of messes people up when we're telling people some of these songs, and oh boy, I think that's one of the big problems we got in the church. And I think that's why God made the largest book in the Bible as a song book. And when we sing the Psalms, which were songs were songs, then you're going to be theologically straight arrow. You're going to be right on if you're singing the Psalms, because the Psalms are always right. There's no this, we're going to sit around and eat taffy and have flowers and strum on our harps. That kind of stuff, maybe I'm just venting a little bit here, but that's what I feel. Okay, I'm going to read Revelation chapter 17. This is a review from last week. Revelation 17, 1 through 13, Babylon. Now, and there was one of the seven angels which had the seven vials, or the bowls, and he talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, and I will show you the judgment of the great whore that sits upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have made drunk with the wine of her fornication. Okay, the first question, the kings of the earth. How many kings are there of the earth when the earth is under one dominant thing? The earth is divided up into how many different kingdoms? 10 kingdoms? 10 kingdoms, yeah. So this is probably a reference to those 10 kings. So he carried me away in a spirit in the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet-covered beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Remember them horns? One of them horns is going to be replaced, and it's going to be the Antichrist. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of the abominations and filthiness of her fornication. Where does she get the money to buy these jewels and gold and all that stuff? From her fornication, right? She's a whore. She's a prostitute. Do we see any? This is where one of the places I see. What religious order has prostituted the gospel and has become rich? Roman Catholic Church. Yeah, I think this is pretty telling. And then later on we're going to find out that there's 7 mountains, that she is on 7 mountains. And Rome is the city of 7 hills. Okay?
Wouldn't Israel be the whore?
Some people say that. Yeah.
I lean that way.
You there?
Israel is the whore.
Yeah.
Because if you read through the Old Testament, you can see they get called a whore all the time because she's going after other gods. And what are they going to be doing during that time? They're going to be worshiping. Well, Satan's throne's going to be right there in Jerusalem.
Yep.
So,
And she's riding the beast.
Yeah.
Yep.
She's going to be right in there with him.
I've heard that too, and there's good on both sides. Another thing, Nathan Jones with Lamb and Lion Ministry, he kind of threw a little thing in there. He said, I believe that there's 2 Babylons spoke of here. That's why in chapter 17 we get a Babylon here, and then in chapter 18 we get another Babylon. There's actually 2 Babylons. And I thought, well, now this is another twist of a good, sound Bible teacher that's saying this, and that this here is religious Babylon. And that chapter 18 is military, money, commerce Babylon. So that there will be 2 different centers, both God labels as Babylon, although one may be, Rome, and one may be something else. There's a lot of conjecture here as to how, but one thing for sure, 6.5 years into the tribulation, when we're not here, they're going to know who this is. So we're just kind of guessing. But this woman is arrayed in purple and scarlet and color, and she's decked with gold, precious stones, and pearls. So she's getting a lot. There's all this. She's filthy rich, and upon her forehead was the name Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth. And that phrase, mother of harlots, fits real well with Jerusalem, or with the Israelis, with the Jewish in the Old Testament, Israel in the Old Testament, mother of harlots. That fits real well with that. So, and I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus, and who was the first ones to persecute the church. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration, and the angel said unto me, Wherefore didst thou wonder? Why are you wondering about this? I will tell you the mystery of the woman and the beast that carries her, which has the 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast which thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend from the bottomless pit and go into perdition. So she was, and then she is not. And then she will ascend into the bottomless. So this, we should, Pastor, I'm gonna have you skip forward on your, under B, where I cover that, and Pastor Chuck Smith. What in the world? It's supposed to be Chuck Smith, and I got Chuckle Smith. Pastor Chuckle Smith. It's Chuck Smith. That's what happened. They had spell check. Not Chuckle. It's Chuck Smith. So the beast, according to this particular verse, is one of the 5 previous Roman emperors prior to the writing of the book of Revelation to John. You say, okay, this was one of them 5 previous emperors. At the time that John was writing, he was no longer, this particular emperor was no longer alive. Remember, he was, and he is not, and he comes back. He was in hell. This particular, we're going to find out, Caesar Nero was in hell. He ascends out of the bottomless pit, but the world will wonder at this man who once lived and was dead and is now alive again. Of the 7 major Roman emperors, and of course the one that comes closest to fitting this description is none other than Caesar Nero, whose name numerically in Hebrew totals 666. That's interesting. So this particular verse that we just read here, that says about he was, and then he is not, and then he comes again from the bottomless pit, there's apparently a resurrection of, according to Chuck, of the Antichrist was alive before he died and he came back to life. Now, I have heard that no, because it uses the phrase son of perdition, that this person that comes back to life that will be the Antichrist is not Nero, but Judas Iscariot. So, Karen, that's another thing for you to look at. We're going to have a lot of stuff for you to look up. Verse 8. Let me finish reading. The beast that thou sawest, and is not. Now the beast, remember, she's riding the beast, and the beast is the Antichrist system. And shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition, and they that dwell on the earth shall wonder. Remember, wonder because they come up out of the bottomless pit, whose names were not written in the book of life of the foundation, from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was, and is not, and yet is. So he's using the same phraseology again. He was alive, and then he is not, and then he's back again. Have you ever heard that before? No? It's kind of interesting. I mean, we're not going to be here, but how does God put this verse into play? From our perspective, and from what Chuck Smith said here, I think it's at least plausible that maybe this Nero is the one that's coming back to life, and that he'll be the Antichrist. If you believe, like myself, when he uses the term son of perdition, I believe it's Judas Iscariot that comes back.
What's perdition?
It's a phrase used, son of destruction, destruction. But the same word is only used 2 times in the New Testament, in the Bible. 2 times, that perdition. It's only used 2 times. One time it's used of Judas Iscariot, the son of perdition, when Jesus gave him said, go and do your deed. He was the son of perdition. And the Antichrist here is mentioned, son of perdition. So that's where I kind of get my, they both use the same terminology, so maybe it's Judas Iscariot that's resurrected here. So I don't know. But verse 9, and here's the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. All right, since you're laughing, Junior, what does that mean?
We were having just a discussion.
Yes, at my expense, I'm sure. Here is the mind of wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. There's only one major city in the world that is talked about as having 7 hills, 7 mountains. It's Rome. So I think this pretty much settles the fact that religious Babylon is probably centered in Rome. That doesn't mean that the Jewish people are not in charge of it, but that religious system will be in Rome. Now then we got to deal with the other Babylon, chapter 18. So if you came today to look for concrete answers for a lot of things, there's a lot. I think I got proof. Sure. Junior.
Well, I understood that the Antichrist will set up his kingdom in Jerusalem. Now, how can Rome be?
Well, he will. Let me back up on it. He will go to the temple in Jerusalem and sit at the throne in the temple and declare himself to be God.
Yeah.
That's true. But where will his religious center be? Will it be Jerusalem? I don't know.
Well, why wouldn't it?
I don't
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it
If
should
he's
be.
If he's going to set up his kingdom and call himself God there, you would think.
You would think that would be his center.
I mean, he's going to have the temple and everything. He's going to use it.
So this 7 hills here.
I heard it say that it's 7 nations, like I ran the 7 nations that are, part of this, that are following.
Well, it says the 7 heads are 7 mountains. I think Revelations, pretty explains that part anyways. We might not know the rest of it, but there's 7 mountains. And there are 7 kings. Remember, there's 7 mountains, and there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, 1 is, and the other is yet to come. When he cometh, he must continue a short space. That's the Antichrist. Now the Antichrist is going to come. Okay? That's speaking of that. The beast that was and is not, even he is of the 8, and is the 8, and he's of the 7, and goes into that word, perdition. So he is going to be one of the leaders in this organization, this religious organization. So
Well, if we're seeing 7 mountains and then 7 kings, it would be nations, wouldn't it?
well, remember he said there's 10 nations that make up the world, and Daniel tells us that the little horn comes up and displaces 3 horns, and he becomes one of them. So that is an organization that the world. There's a lot of. It gets kind of deep, don't it? Dr. Wolver. Look at Dr. Wolver. He's very good at deciphering a lot of this stuff here. And that's what Dr. Jeremiah uses a lot of him. The 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, verse 12, which have received no kingdom as yet. So they're not kings yet. but they are over the kingdom. So that's interesting. So they're not elected as kings or something. They're just kind of over it, but they're not kings yet. But they receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. So the beast kind of puts them in charge, but they're not kings. So there's a twist. Try to put that in. What did Flip Wilson say? Put that in your pipe and smoke it? Trying to figure that one out. These have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. So he has not appointed them a kingship, but he's appointed them to be rulers over a kingdom. One of the 10 kingdoms. Okay? Now, take a deep breath. If you're not confused yet, we're going to verse 14. And verse 14, I want you to go to your paper under C. This is so critical to us in our day and age, and I think you'll catch it right away. Are you ready? These shall make war with the Lamb. Who? These 10 kings, right? Of which 3 have been this way. Who will make war with the Lamb? Okay. For he is Lord of lords, King of kings, and they that are with him are 3 things. They're called and chosen and faithful. In that order. In that order. Who accompanies Jesus at this battle? Just from this verse, if we read this, who accompanies Jesus at this particular battle when Jesus overcomes them? Those that are called, chosen, and faithful. He doesn't say all believers will be there, does he? He says these are the 3 requirements to be in Jesus' conquering first assault on those of the world. Is that not what he's saying? Take a look. Don't just take what I'm saying. Then, Dawn, get your Bible open. How are you going to look if you don't have your Bible open? Okay, now let's look at. Notice, I want to take your paper in the little circle thing. Notice the saints who will accompany Jesus in his judgment of the beast and the harlot. First, they were called. Those that answered the call are chosen. And those that are chosen and faithful are selected. Does that make sense?
Isn't that salvation though? I mean, Christ calls us, we don't do it on our own.
If we lump all 3 of these words together and say this is it, this is it. But he sets it in order. He sets it in order. First of all, they're called. Who answers the call of salvation? Everybody saved, right? To whom does the call go out?
Jesus Christ.
Okay. Who did Jesus send the call to? The world, right? Whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be saved. God sets his call to the world. Jesus came to the world. If I be lifted up, I will draw all men to myself. So there's the call. Those that are called, they call. God put out a call. And they answer that call. And they're born again. Now there's salvation. Right there at the beginning. Now, who are the ones that are chosen?
That would be the saved ones though.
Yes, which saved ones though?
No, I'm saying all God has to choose us.
Be careful of that word choose, because we're not using this in the same analogy as we were in Ephesians chapter 1. This is talking about God sends a call out, and those that receive him, they are chosen. Why? Because they answered the call. They were saved. He called, they were saved. Right? So,
Well, the call could be for the world, and then
It
chosen
doesn't, he
is the
doesn't
ones.
say that. He doesn't say that. It's not to the world.
I mean,
He-
it's for all.
The called is to the world. But the chosen are to those that answer the call.
They answer the call.
Okay? Very important that we keep this together. Because when we don't go through other parts of the scripture and we start saying, oh, we're chosen before the foundation of the earth, and we start taking this and we say, oh, see, we were chosen for salvation. No. Those that were saved, they are chosen from the saved group. There are some that are chosen ones. They are chosen after they've asked Christ into their heart. I didn't phrase that right, did I? There. Of those that answer the call, they're chosen. Jesus said, you're chosen. Now, he's still trying to, he's narrowing it down. Remember, he's saying, who is going to come and accompany Jesus during this time of overthrowing this beast and this whore woman? Who is the faithful? The faithful. Who are the faithful? The faithful are of the chosen. The chosen are of those that are called. We have to make sure we do not get these mixed up. We're not chosen first. We're chosen. The call goes out first, and they receive the call, and then we are called chosen.
What's faithful then? I mean,
Faith-
you're saying, okay, he's choosing them, and then he goes to another degree, ones that are faithful, if we're all in heaven.
Okay.
What's the
Good
faithful?
question. Now think about, as we said with David and David's 37 mighty men. I can't remember, did I write it down here? Where that passage is. 2 Samuel chapter 23. It's quite long, but remember Benaniah was in there? And a few other guys? What made them select ones of David to be his mighty men? They did great acts of faith.
And they were faithful.
And they were
And
faithful.
obedient.
You're using that word, B.
Because that's the way it is.
Yes. God, so when God comes back, or when Jesus returns to this earth to destroy the Antichrist, the beast, and the false prophet, the whore, when he comes back to destroy them, those that he is bringing back, according to this passage, those that are accompanying him in, let's say, the first wave of assault, those that are right there with him, it's not the 150 million people. It's the select of the select of the select. It's those that are called, those that are chosen, and then those that are faithful. They are the ones that he selects to be in that position. Okay? Does that make sense? I know when we get the word chosen and we start looking at that and start misconstruing that to mean, oh, that's something that happens before the foundation of the earth. You cannot plug that in here. That is not what that's talking about. The chosen are those that have been called and have accepted the call. Okay? That is very important in our day and age. Okay, let's just read. I know we don't like to do commentaries, but of all the commentaries, I try to find somebody that puts it down very precise. Okay? Paul's commentary, the very first one. Notice the saints who will be accompanying Jesus in the judgment of the beast and the harlot. First, they are called. Those that are called, or those that answer the call, are chosen, and those chosen that are faithful are selected. Okay? Dr. Paul tells us this. They that are with him are called, chosen, and faithful. For he has a power over others, and knows how to fit instruments for his purpose, so as those whom he shall make use of in his work shall be chosen persons and faithful in discharge of the trust committed in them. So God has entrusted something in us, and those that are faithful to that, they will be given the privilege of returning with Christ and destroying the Antichrist and the false prophet. That's a high honor. Now, when we, how can we, there's always something, an analogy in the Bible. The greatest analogy to this is David and his mighty men. They were his what do they call the Secret Service guys that were right around, our president and something. These 37 in Psalms, or in 2 Samuel chapter 23, I'm not going to read it because there's quite a few verses here. It's 31 verses. 2 Samuel 23 verses 8 through 39. It talks about David's mighty men. And you read in there, one guy slew 800 men with a sword. Benaniah is said to have jumped down into a pit on a snowy day and killed a lion. And that's what made him one of David's mighty men. Faithfulness in believing that their God, or his God, would take care of. And that's why he was elevated to that position of being one of the leaders in the assault on wickedness during David's reign. He was Benaniah, I speak of, and I can't remember the other guy's name. Shulamit or something. He killed 800 of them. And by the way, just a little twist, one of David's mighty men was Uriah the Hittite, Bathsheba's husband. That's what made it even more so heinous what David did. He took one of the wives of one of his mighty men and impregnated her. Yeah.
Will this just be because I've always thought that the church is what's coming back. You're saying the mighty men of the church. It's not.
Okay.
It would be the ones that come back to them. It's supposed to be the church.
Yes and no. The church and those that are martyred during the tribulation before Christ returns, they'll be there also. Okay.
So this wouldn't be the Old Testament.
I don't know. That Old Testament thing is, David's going to be there during the kingdom age. So, and that's obvious. He's the prince. So, I believe when Jesus led captivity captive and gave gifts to men, that's a reference to the Old Testament prophets and believers all the way back to Adam. Abel would be in there. All of them would be resurrected, and all of them will be returning with Christ. I believe, but I can't prove the Old Testament thing. The New Testament is really easy to prove, as is the tribulation saints.
It would seem that the Jews would have to come back with the promised land.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know how that works, but
Yeah. Yeah.
they'll be here on the earth.
They'll be ruling the earth. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, can we use this as an illustration of analogy? Jesus was careful when he was done he chose 12 men. But when he went to the Mount of Transfiguration, he only took 3 men with him. Only 3 men, Peter, James, and John. Jesus had a select few that were faithful and had a closer relationship. The others were saved, but they did not receive the same rewards or attention.
Yes.
And this is kind of what this is talking
Yeah,
about.
that's a good insight. Just for those on the YouTube that hadn't caught what she was saying. She was saying Jesus had 12 disciples, but he only took 3 to the Mount of Transfiguration. They were the select of the select of the select of the select, right? And here we see the same thing when Jesus comes back to destroy the Antichrist, the whore and the false prophet. Those that are in the front line of assault with him. That's what it seems to indicate. That those that are accompanying him, those are those that are called, and then they're chosen of the called, and then they're the faithful of the chosen. We need to be real careful when we use that term chosen, that we skip over the called part. We can't mix them around. The call goes out to all men, everywhere. And those that accept Christ, they become chosen after they receive Christ. Okay? Is that much clear?
No, the call here is only to the ones that are already in heaven. This isn't to the whole world.
Oh, no.
Because Christ brings them back with him.
No. He's using the terminology. Let's go up there. Let's verse 18. Let's go back to 17.
It says that those who are with him, so it has to be the Christians. It's not.
Right.
The call has to be to the Christians.
To the believers.
The
Yeah.
believers, right?
Yeah. Those that make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords, King of kings. For they that are with him are called. And then they're chosen. And then they're faithful.
So it can't be the whole world. You were saying it
Oh,
was.
no, not the whole world. But believers. You know, you use the word church. Is this the church? The church ceases to be at Revelation chapter 4, verse 1 when we're raptured. Okay, there is no church after that. There's born again people. There's a lot of saved people. In the greatest revival we'll ever have, this world will ever have, will be during the tribulation. But they're never called part of the church. And you may have used the word church meaning everybody that's saved, and that would be okay. But if we're referring to the church as from Pentecost to the rapture, they aren't the only ones that are here. Okay?
So what you're saying is, out of all these Christians, the church, of all the church, there's some be, they're all chosen. So out of that group, you got what's the next one?
No, called. The whole church is called.
Called. And then out of that group of the called ones, will be a chosen group that will come out of there. And then out of that group will be the faithful.
Yes. Yeah.
So however many that will
Yes.
be.
Yes.
So what's going to happen with all the rest of them?
They must follow, because we all return with
Yeah,
Christ.
they all return.
But the frontal assault, and it seems as though, you know, the kings in the antiquity, when they would invade something and they overcome the obstructions, they would bring the generals and the captains and those that are the greatest warriors with them. They come into the conquering gate. That's why the Ark of Triumph in Rome was built, because of that, because Titus Vespasian brought in all the other guys that were with him, captains and whatever they are, the legionnaires, the guys that are charging. They all came in first. And after that came in the rest of the Roman soldiers. They would come in under the Ark of Triumph. They came in after the leaders, those that were the most faithful, those that he was lifting up for special recognition of privilege. Now we see this over and over and over again in the scriptures, that God has special promise to all of those that are faithful to him. You know, he is no man's debtor, the Bible says. God goes out and pays back 100-fold. And this should help us to understand that those that may be believers but are not chosen and are not faithful, they're not going to be in the front line. They're going to be in the back.
They will be saved.
Yes.
They will be there, but they will not be the select group.
Right.
Do you believe that the select group is actually going to do battle? I think Christ is just going to come down. It's going to be.
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. They accompany him. He says they accompany him. That they that are with him are. So those that are close by him, they come down and they are the called, the chosen, the faithful.
If you take a look at Israel and some of their wars they had, all they had to do was go out there and
Yep.
God basically took care of it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they had to go.
Yep. And they had to believe
Yeah.
that God would take care of it.
And that's,
You know, and it's the same thing today, isn't it? We have to believe that Jesus really died on the cross for me. He died for me. That's what makes me a believer. Now I'm a believer, But am I chosen for special reward? No, not necessarily. That comes whether or not I do anything. What prodigal son, what did he do? He didn't do nothing. He went out and he squandered it on the riotous living. Know anybody that's a believer that's doing that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, take a look at Peter. He denied Christ 3 times.
3 times.
And
Yeah.
he had other problems too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he was still chosen of the 3.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Yeah, and you know, just a little tidbit, you opened the Pandora's box, you know, with Peter, because okay, I won't go there, because it might get kind of deep. Let's just go on to verse 15.
That means you're getting an attitude.
Now he's gonna be curious.
No, I'm doing a thing to try to figure this out. I'm just, you know, Jesus said that if you deny me before men, I'll deny you before my Father which is in heaven.
Yes.
And Peter denied Christ 3 times.
Yeah, he did.
So is Peter going to be denied before his Father in heaven?
No.
No. So did Jesus make that up when he said, if you deny me before men, I'll deny you before my Father which is in heaven? He was speaking to believers. And that's what I'm trying to figure this out, because there's no contradiction in the scriptures.
I think that Peter wasn't outcasted from. He was still part of Peter, James, and John. And but the difference, he would have been denied, but he was restored, and that's why God still called him.
Yeah. And he called, and that gives us a great assurance that we can actually make it to the top if we've screwed up royally with our life. We can actually make it to be one of the select ones, even if we screwed it up royally. Peter did. Now, and you know, just as a little side thing, Junior, this deny thing, the word deny has various meanings in the scripture, and I haven't got down to the Greek level. I think when Jesus was saying, if you deny me before men, I'll deny you before my Father which is in heaven, that's somebody that in their actions, in their entire life, and their entire thing that they talk about is that I deny Jesus. That Peter denied before this woman because he was embarrassed.
Not only that, he asked for basically forgiveness, but the
Yes.
Christ was probably not.
Yeah.
And the ones that you're talking about, where he's going to deny them before, they haven't asked for forgiveness.
Yeah. So I'm doing a work on that. If I can't figure it, Karen, you're in charge of that too. Okay. Are you writing all these down? Okay, verse 15. Verse 15, it says, and he saith unto them, the waters which thou sawest. Now he's given us description of what this is. Where the horse sitteth are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. So this is a worldwide, take a look at your paper, number 15. What does she sitting on many waters mean? She's worldwide. She's embraced by the world. This whorish woman, which I believe, I believe is Roman Catholicism. I believe that, Junior. That's right. The first Babylon was also destroyed by a multitude of waves. Jeremiah chapter 51. It says this, and maybe this will add a little bit of fuel to the fire of controversy, but let's go to Jeremiah 51. Take a look at it. O thou that dwellest among many waters, abundant in treasures, thine end is come, and the measure of thy covetousness. So he's talking about this same whorish woman, this same thing that's coming in Revelation. The sea is come up upon Babylon. He's not talking about the ancient city of Babylon, because that's 1,000 miles from any sea. It's in the middle of the desert. That's not talking about that. the sea is come upon Babylon. She is covered with a multitude of waves thereof. Because the Lord hath spoiled Babylon, and destroyed out of her the great voice, when her waves do roar like great waters, a noise, and their voice is uttered. Remember, the beast will hate the whore that gave him his power. And he will make war and trample the whore in chapter 18. We're going to see that. So there's two different beasts. There's the Antichrist and his group, which is militarily and economic, and then there's the other beast that comes from the earth and one from the sea. Remember that in chapter 16? The beast that comes from the sea, the beast that comes from the earth, from the ground. And the one beast is what we're talking about, this whore, this great whore. And this great whore, this beast whore, is going to be destroyed by the Antichrist and his horde. He's going to usurp her authority. And that's going to be a bloodbath right there, too. So there's some things we're going to see in chapter 18. We're not going to get there probably, but chapter 18 is going to talk about how this whore, this great Babylon whore, how that they're going to destroy her and trample her and destroy her to nothing. So I believe if it's the Roman Catholicism kind of a thing, that the beast will rise up against Romish Catholicism and destroy the Pope and all of the stuff and take over and say he is God. And that the whore beast that comes from the land, the woman, that she's no longer a part of the picture. And when we get to the end of Revelation, there's only one beast, and that's the Antichrist and his group. There's no woman whore. She's destroyed by that time.
And isn't that the religious system of the
Yeah.
church?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's what we're referring to here in chapter 17 is the religious system. But it's kind of confusing because it uses the word Babylon for both in chapter 17 and chapter 18, Babylon. And but it seems as though they're linked. You know, religious Babylon is in Rome, I believe. But perhaps the Antichrist Babylon, and this is where Nathan Jones in Lamb and Lion Ministries, he's saying that there's actually two Babylons, or two centers of world power. One religious power that's in Rome, and one military power that's in Israel, at the Temple Mount. Okay? Is that confusing? Because if you're not confused, you need to help me. I'm confused. A lot of these words, like, oh boy. Okay, let's go on. We just finished D. Let's go to E. Yep, go ahead.
Okay, they did a study and they were doing like the banks and the lands and everything, and they were figuring out who has taken over the United States, other countries and stuff, and we think it's China and everything. It's not. It's Israel. It's one of the most powerful and richest nations that have their foot in all the stuff. And that could even relate, not just the Roman church being that rich and everything, but also the Jewish nation is really
They got their hands in
everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, radio, music, I mean, it's.
Gold in my ear. Yeah, Paul,
But you don't
movies.
hear about it or anything, them having.
The problem with that, and one of the, probably many, is that most of the Jews in America that are associated with that type of stuff have divested themselves from the nation of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And they are not, they vote against the nation of Israel.
That's the intellectual.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the banks in
Yep.
Israel.
Yep.
In Jewish owned this stuff, that's the,
Oh, well,
that's the bigger,
the Rockefellers and all of them are over here. But, you know, the big tech industries are over in Israel. But when we look at what we're studying here, when he's talking about these 10 nations that combine together against Israel, I think he's referring to the nation of Israel over there. And some of those that join together are Jewish themselves.
would that be?
We see
like-
that with Judas Iscariot, the great traitor. One of the great, Adolf Hitler had Jewish ancestry. So
Would that
did,
be why like 1/3 or whatever run into the,
yeah.
but maybe there's Jewish people
Mhm.
still in
Mhm.
with the Antichrist?
Mhm. Yeah, because some of the biggest traitors to the Nazis, against Israel were other Israelis, those that had Jewish blood. So I'm referring to the nation of Israel. That place over there, that's God's chosen land, and that's the people that are in that land. There's almost an equal number of, there's about 8 million Jews there, there's about 8 million in America that have not gone back there. And one of the lawyers that my son has is Jewish. And I don't think he's gonna make it. But anyway. I might have some animosity built up in me, but let's go on. But when Penny and I, when we're studying, we talk about this stuff here, she says, Barney ain't gonna make it, is he? Nope, don't think so. He's not gonna be one of these. Verse 16 and 17. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore. That's important. Get that in there. They're gonna hate these 10 nations, these 10 kingdoms that the world is divided up to. There's going to come a point in the tribulation where they will hate the whore. The whore, remember, is religious. That's religious. They're going to hate the whore. They're going to join together. We'll see what they do. These shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For God has put it in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast until the words of God shall be fulfilled. This is interesting for us in knowing that God has this planned out to the very finest degree. He is going to place within the heart of the Antichrist and his followers to destroy this religious beast. It's going to be he's going to place it in their heart, and they're going to burn her with fire. Oh, that's interesting. Sounds like she must have some religious building or something, a center, and make her naked and make her completely. I think this is a reference to the Antichrist rising up against this world religious organization and destroying it and declaring he is God and there's no other God. And God has placed it in his head to do this. So it's kind of interesting, isn't it? You writing these things down, Karen? So I want you to check this out. Okay, let's look at the 10 kings will hate the harlot. How does God know what the heart of a demon-possessed ruler will be years before the ruler is even born? Go back to our other thing. I believe that's because God is omnipresent. He's there. At this time, He's there. He's here. He's back there. Is she listening to me? I'm giving all this heavy theological stuff up here and she's not
I
paying.
just got it.
Oh,
Wasn't good.
it wasn't?
Norm fell off the roof. And he knocked himself out.
Oh,
He's awake now, but Nana's taking him to the
Hospital.
Who's his name?
Norman.
Just-
Norm Thompson. Eugene's older. Fell off the road. We'll have prayer for him at the end of this. Okay, I'm going to ask this question again. How does God know what the heart of a demon-possessed ruler is going to be years before that ruler is even born?
Because with God, there's no difference in time.
There's no difference in time. God knows that heart because God is there and God sees it. And this is where I'm going to jump on my hobby horse again and say, remember, Abraham in the Old Testament, or no, I'm sorry, Moses in the Old Testament. Who shall I say sent me? The I Am has sent you. The I Am that I am. He is here, He's there, He's everywhere, He's omnipresent. Those that would use the word chosen will say God is following us through time. He's following us through time, and those things in the past, He knows what's going to happen up there because He's going to orchestrate things to make it happen. But He's going to make it happen like that. But does God orchestrate a demon-possessed guy then to do something against the demon-possessed system? I don't think so. He's there. He's present. That's why when He told Moses in the Old Testament, I am that I am, has sent you, I am there. I am there. And I am back here. And I am with you today here. Humans are following the time sequence. God has no time sequence. He has no time sequence. He goes and He is anywhere in any time. Does that make sense? That's heavy. That's big time heavy, and it's hard for believers, even believers in this day and age, when we get born and the mom says, now it's time for the bottle. It's time for the bottle. Oh, it's time to get your diapers changed. Oh, it's time. And we start right from conception. Everything is time. We are time. God is not time. God lives outside of time. And He says, this particular person, He's going to place into the heart of this demon-possessed ruler to persecute and destroy this other demon-possessed system, this whore. We got to stretch our mind around that. Some things we have to just accept by faith. But does God tempt the kings to hate the harlot? James 1:13 says, let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth He any man. So God's not tempting any man. He's not tempting this Antichrist to hate the whore. He's not tempting him. Well, then how come he ends up, it says that he places within their heart. That's because He's there. He's there. And it's happening. You see the analogy? Okay. What does God has put it in their heart mean? All God's working is in the present tense. Everything that God does is in the present tense. It's nothing in the past, nothing in the future. It's always in the present tense. See if you don't look that up. Just kind of give it a once over and a think about it. This is another question for you, Karen. I'm delegating all questions of any special significance. Okay, verse 18. The woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. So this woman, this whore, is of 7 mountains, and she reigns over the kings of the earth. I believe this is Rome. Religious Rome. Okay? Now, I'm going to do what I probably should never do. Is actually let this Bible study out 14 minutes early. 14 minutes early. Is there any
You
objection?
realize in August, you're gonna have to redo this.
Yeah. Well, Karen's going to have it all laid out for us.
You didn't even answer the question that I, called you about.
What's
You
that?
had to ask it.
Chapter 21 about coming out of the sea.
Yep. He says, I don't know.
Okay, say it.
That's your summer project.
I don't know
He
what
said
the
they
question
came out
was.
of the sea. When they came out of the sea, through the sea into
Through the sea
into the lake of fire, he took through the sea and.
Those that came out of the sea
Yeah.
are thrown into the lake of fire.
And death and hell.
Now that's at the
Fire.
end of the millennium. That's at the end of the millennium. That's not now.
I know that, but
Or
I
tribulation.
I said, that's something for you for the summertime.
Why did it happen so late? I mean, why didn't it happen at the beginning?
I don't know. God's plan was to put it at the end.
I just want the distinction between the people who are in the sea, why weren't they in the lake of fire if unsaved in the lake of fire? Why do you have to put the sea in there?
Well, he says the earth too. Those that were in the earth and in the sea, and then hell cast into the lake of fire, which is the second death. And the abyss is referred to as the depths of the sea. The abyss. And so hell, if you want to think of it as that way, is in the depths of the sea. Down below the sea. In the depths of the earth. Okay, but the lake of fire is some other place.
I know, that's the.
Hell is thrown into the lake of fire.
Yeah.
And I think it was J. Vernon McGee said, you can kind of think of it as the local jail. Hell is kind of the local jail, and the lake of fire is the penitentiary. That's where you spend the rest of your eternity there. God takes you
But
from.
it distinctly
from
says
local
sea
jail.
separate from that.
Yeah.
Separate from hell.
Okay, go into Junior.
Yeah.
Isn't the sea also, a picture of humanity? And couldn't it be coming out of that sea?
Yes, where it was talking about the beast coming out, the first beast coming out of the
Out of
sea.
the sea,
Yes,
well, what
yeah.
she's talking about is that,
She's using that same sea
that's
as,
what I'm wondering.
as referring to humanity. Okay,
Oh, you like that one, cause that helps you.
no,
I'm sorry.
pass that question on to Phil and Karen, and we'll go over that. You've done such a good job of